we're not selling solar panels, we're saving money.
Yep.
Right. That's the product. Freedom's product was far superior to our product. Because you're already so far ahead, it's like past that breaking point.
Yeah.
Where now you're absorbing more and more and more teams because your product is so superior, to other products that you're going to keep growing even faster.
This is the Solar Disruption Theory.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Solar Disruption Theory podcast. My name is Chad Towner. I'm your host, and today we've got a very special guest. His name is Justin Wolf. He was the CEO of Meraki Solar. He's now a VP at Solar Pros. He's got an extensive background in solar, in door-to-door sales. I'm super excited to have him on. Justin, thank you for joining and welcome. How you doing?
Doing good, man. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I've been wanting to have you on for a while. We've been on and off phone calls and back and forth for a couple of years now, I think.
Yep, it has been.
I never met you in person until just earlier this year, but it seems like literally for like the last 2 or 3 years, every 6 months or so, somebody would set us up on a Teams call or a Zoom call and say, hey, the Meraki company, we got to work with them. And, they're doing such great things. We've got to figure out a way to work with them. And we get on a phone call and it always just kind of felt like, oh, that would be great. You seem awesome, but, timing didn't always line up.
Yep. Yeah, for us, for a long time, because we are obviously operating in our 3 or 4 states that we did our own installs.
Yeah.
And there was always teams that did 10, 20 deals a month that wanted to partner with us in other states, but I didn't want to spend $1 million and open up a warehouse and all this stuff.
Right.
And so I always wanted to use a partner out there, and I didn't want to ever use anyone besides Freedom.
Right.
Freedom's the best.
Okay. We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I wanted to use Freedom, but I didn't know I would do my own installs. And so, yeah, I kept trying. I know you guys had that exclusivity clause, and you're big on it. And a few guys, I won't name any names, no one at Solar Pros, but a few other groups were like, oh, just do it on the table on the side. And I was always like, no, if it's exclusive, I got to be exclusive, and I want them to agree to it. So I was trying my hardest to sell you guys on letting me just use you outside, but
I will admit it was very tempting because you had volume in markets where we really needed volume. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, okay, so if we let him just keep installing you were in like Florida, Texas, New Mexico, and Colorado. And you wanted to, you were like, hey, I got all these sales teams, I got all these sales groups that I want to bring in all these other states. I want to use Freedom in all my non-Meraki states, and we'll be exclusive in all those other states.
I tried hard.
I was so tempted, but every time I was like, man, our business model is just very different. You don't have to agree with it. We require our dealers to be exclusive to us. And it just never panned out. And, fast forward, obviously we're doing business together, which is great. But I want to back up a little bit before we get into that, because you guys have done a lot of really awesome things in solar, and you've created a lot of jobs, generated a lot of revenue. You did a lot of great things in solar, and I think the climate in the solar space, it is so difficult to operate in solar in today's climate and the marketplace. And so you didn't start in solar, you started in alarms.
Yep.
Like me, like a lot of people. Walk us through kind of that transition of how you got into the door-to-door scene, but then you eventually decided to stand up your own solar company.
Yeah. So I started about 14 years ago in home security.
Yep.
Real small company called Ben Franklin Security. There's like 10 of us.
Wow.
Vector dealer. And loved that. After my first summer, I dropped out of college, and I just went all year round in home security. So it wasn't a summer thing. It was just all year round.
Yeah.
Did that for 3 years, and I opened up my first home security dealership. Wolf Home Security.
Nice.
Good learning lesson. Just because you're good at sales doesn't mean you're good at running a company. I had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah. Me too.
But it was my first learning experience. So I ran that for almost a year. And then I was approached by VSLR, so the one that turned into Sunrun, joined them. And I went out there. It was new. It's pretty new back then. This is 2015, I think, roughly.
Okay.
So I went out to California, and I was a DM out in Fresno, California for them. And did really well. We were the number one team in California. The last year I was there, I personally averaged just over 20 installs a month. The last quarter I was there, I did 63.
Wow.
I loved it. You know, like
Yeah.
I feel like while I was there, I kind of changed my mindset on sales too. Like I'd always looked at sales as just an avenue to make a lot of money,
Right.
And then invest and retire young and all that, which is great. But I changed my mindset a lot while I was there to where I loved my job. Like
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved competing. I loved knocking doors. Loved being out there. Don't get me wrong. There's hard stuff, but just like hard stuff with sports, like you love it. And so I had a vision where I wanted to create a company where the whole focus of the company was around the lifestyle of your job. Because, you work 8 hours a day. If your job sucks, most of your life sucks.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. Like we do that far more than anything else. We don't even do anything half as much as we work.
Right.
The flip side is if your job's really fulfilling, most of your life is fulfilling.
Yeah.
Right.
Good point.
And my job had affected me in such a positive way, like in who I was as a person. Like if you met me before I did sales, like I'm a completely different person and just in such a positive movement, the things I was able to do for my family, financially, my dad passed away. I was able to help a lot of my family out, my siblings, my mom moved in with me for a few years. Like it just had such a profound positive impact on my life that we wanted to create a company where that was the focus. Right.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so Meraki's Greek. It means to put your heart and soul into what you do, like leave a piece of yourself in, your work.
Yeah.
And so we started up, we were just a dealer at first, worked with a few different companies, expanded from Texas into Florida, New Mexico and all that. Then we ended up doing our own EPC. This has got to be 7 years ago.
Yeah.
We stood up our own EPC in Florida and continued to expand. We did really well. It eventually took over the other states as well. In 2022, we kind of hit our peak, I would say,
Yeah.
as a lot of people did in the industry.
Right.
But we
That was the
crushed it.
last of the good years.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, we averaged just over 1,000 deals a month. In January, we had 1,000 deals that
Wow.
year. And so in August, we did 1,300. We did just over 240 million in revenue that year. I mean, I was just taking over the world. It
Right.
felt like,
Yeah.
And so 2023, we hit the same headwinds everyone hit.
Yep.
Those interest rates just went sky high. The lenders started cracking down. Our top guys, it didn't affect a ton, but the bottom and middle, I mean, they had kind of relied on just how easy it was to sell solar versus having a lot of sales skill. And so you lose that bottom and middle, right? They start struggling a lot more, which of course the top guys hate that too, because they
Yeah.
rely on overrides and growth.
Right.
And so going into 2023, at the end of it, we took a few lumps. We
Yeah.
dropped down to more like that 500-600 deal a month range, which is still good, but
It's hard to wind down or go backwards when you've built the operations, you've built all the employees, and
Yep,
you've
the
got the
warehouses.
warehouses and the overhead and the inventory and it's hard to shrink in this business. You
It
have
is.
to even maintaining is difficult. You have to keep growing.
Yep.
In order to keep your costs down.
Yep. Especially, I mean, you use 50% of your gross revenue. That's hard. So that one hurt a lot. And that's something I learned in business too. After I actually had a small dealership before Meraki that ended up going under. Never really got off the ground is a better way to say it. And there's a lot of ways you can fail in business that has nothing to do with you too.
Yeah.
Like you could be working, let's say you're 100%. A good example, there's some lenders out right now, I won't name names, but there's some lenders just not paying people.
Right.
Like you could be crushing it, you could be dominating. Well, let's say they make up 60% of your business, they don't pay you. Well,
You're done.
you're done. It's too bad. And
Yeah.
you have to have someone at the helm that can anticipate these kind of things, like way in advance and structure the company moving forward. And to be honest, most people in the solar company just aren't that networked into the finance realm.
Right.
Right. And into many other realms, manufacturers or whatever it is. We had a manufacturer where we had hundreds of $1,000s we put down, and then they ended up not being able to fulfill. We went direct.
Right.
Oops. Right.
Yeah.
and so there's just so many ways to fail besides, you doing bad.
No, and there's a lot that's outside of anybody's control, right? We are in an industry that is still brand new. I mean, yes, it's been around, technically a lot longer, but if you were to compare solar to like electricity, right? Because I do this a lot, like go back 100 years from now, and this is that was an industry that took decades to build.
Yep.
And you need infrastructure, you need policy. There's so many things that go into, we just take turning the lights on for granted today. But 120 years ago, a lot of houses were still using kerosene lamps, and this transition. I can only imagine. I've read stories, and it was just the Wild West is the term that everybody uses, and that's very applicable in the solar space today.
Yep.
And so, people are kind of figuring things out as they go. And there are factors outside of anybody's control, no matter how good of a business person you are, that can have an effect on your business. And, it feels like that is largely what is happening right now. There's plenty of good operators out there that are just feeling the squeeze, they're feeling the pressure, and they're not going to make it. There's also a lot of bad operators that need to go away. Right. And so it is a bit of a refining process. I was on the show with Riley Traveler from Boundless not too long ago, and we were talking about this refining process. So all of those things are happening, but with you guys, you had the mission, you had the vision, you had this kind of bigger cause than just, hey, we want to go make a bunch of money, right? We want to enjoy what we do. We want to embrace the good and the bad and the difficult of solar and take care of the customer. Like, you guys had a mission, and it seemed like you guys had run a well-run, smart business, and you guys were doing it at a really high level. I mean, at your peak, the 1,000, 1,300 accounts were selling. In terms of megawatts, what does that equate to?
I didn't look at the exact number of megawatts now, to be honest with you. It was right around 8,000 installs that year.
I mean,
which was great. It was a great year.
That's it's amazing, And so, probably around 50 to 60 megawatts.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I know that we had, it was because we had 1 month where we did almost 6 megawatts installed. It was a good month. Yeah, it was nice. It was like we continue to do well 2022, obviously, but then at the end of 2023, we were actually getting kind of excited again, slightly, as all the other companies started going down. That was when we had a ton of the teams reaching out to us, right? I mean, there's all these orphan teams running around, and so they kept reaching out to us. And that's why I was calling you guys so much, because it's tough to expand no matter what. It costs a lot of money. It's costs a lot of capital. It's really tough to expand when you just contracted and you're out of capital. It's really hard. And so, again, even when we came out here to meet with you guys, because I know we talked on the phone, went back and forth, I was actually still hoping to sell you guys a little bit on just letting us utilize you in other states.
Well, I think somebody had told you that I had changed my mind on that. And so they got us on a call, and the infamous call where I was less than nice.
It was a fun call.
That was a short call.
It was.
And I was just like, okay, so you're pretty much trying to call me and pitch me the same thing that I've said no to 5 times. The answer's an emphatic no, right?
Hey, at one point you said 95% no instead of 100%.
I don't remember, but it sounds like I must have left the door open at one point. I mean, like I said, I wanted to do it, but it's not. That is the fundamental problem with the majority of the rest of the solar industry is sales organizations think that they can create this multi-partner broker model because in some other industries it might work, right? But this buffet of options, and you got this installer in this region and that installer in that region, and as soon as they get backed up, you switch your sales to the next installer. You're just going to one by one bankrupt everybody you're working with. It is terrible. The worst model that exists in solar, and it has been proven over and over and over. And so when people approach me and say, hey, I want to do this kind of hybrid thing, and 1 foot in freedom and 1 foot in the rest of the space, it's like, we've just seen it too many times. It does not work. It never has, and it never will. As tempting as it is to say, hey, we would love to do business with you in these markets, and the analogy is like the marriage analogy. Nobody likes to hear it, but like, we're not open or interested in being in an open relationship with our sales partners because we need all of that volume. All of that volume is what makes Freedom efficient, what allows us to continue to scale and grow. And frankly, it's what helps us work together and solve challenges. I mean, if you guys had multiple installers like a lot of everybody else is doing, you have to create a whole different process for everybody you work. It's hard enough to operate solar in one system with one process. I cannot imagine 2, let alone
10,
12 or 20 or 50 or whatever these crazy companies are doing. So anyway, we get on the phone. It was another no. I did feel bad. I could have been kinder. It was funny because we met in person and you're like, you're not as big of a jerk as I thought you were. But on that call, I guess I was.
I like the competence. Let's put it that way. I like that you're like, no, everyone's going to join us or die. And I'm like, oh, Like, I mean, obviously I have a big head. Obviously I knew we weren't your guys' side, but I had a big head as all sales guys do. And I was like, what the heck? But I was still intrigued, at the end of the day.
So you finally eventually made the decision, right? You're just experiencing a lot of pain, and you could have, you guys had been running things well, and you could have kept things going.
Yep.
You made the conscious decision that rather than just keep surviving and navigating through all these storms, you finally said, all right, let's go all in, go back to what we really loved and were good at, which is sales leadership and developing and building sales teams, and let freedom take care of the ops.
Yep. Yeah.
What was that decision? Yeah. What led to that decision? What was that like coming to that? Because I know what it's like to eventually come to the realization, like, hey, we need to wind things down. We need to stop doing this business. That's a very difficult thing to do. It's an emotional thing. Everything about it is difficult, but I think you made the right move. And so,
yeah.
What was that like?
I'll walk you through it. So, because I felt like we were really good at installs. I think we did a great job. Our guys loved it. So I don't think it was a lack of confidence in our ability to perform. I think it's kind of like comparing, Walmart came into town and you're one of the local little shops, right? So it's more of just like, you have to realize your ability. I'm a 5-foot guy facing off against a 7'6" guy in the NBA one-on-one. It's just, you have to be realistic. So like when I sat down I was the CFO on and off for Meraki for most of the years, in business. We had CFO sometimes, but then if we terminated or whatever, I would step in and do it. Yeah. So I'm very familiar with the numbers, behind the scenes to do everything. And at scale too, right? Now, obviously not your guys' scale, but 1,000 deals a month is good scale.
Yeah.
And I sat down and I went through your guys' numbers, and this is on equipment. This is including like trucks and shrinkage and stuff, but you guys were beating us in that category on equipment by almost 40 cents.
Yep.
And for me, it floored me. Like, I was like, holy shit, that is just a massive number. Like, we're fighting tooth and nail, of course, to get our cost down by 5 cents, 10 cents. If you're doing really good, get your cost down 10 cents is crazy. And so that is just such a massive number to make up. I to be honest, I just didn't see us making up that number. That, and then on the employee side too, it was almost 20 cents. And so combined, I'm looking at a 60-cent swing here. And I know price in other industries isn't everything, but in solar, the blunt truth is it is, because we're not selling solar panels, we're saving money.
Yep.
Right. That's the product. Right. Let's be real. We all install roughly the same solar panels. We all install within a few weeks of each other. Right. Yep. It's not like timelines aren't like, unless you're absolute trash, like timelines are within a few weeks, like, of everyone else. And this is a 25-year product. A customer, if they save an extra $20 a month, they'll wait another 2 weeks to get installed. Like, they don't care. Like, price is by far the most important factor,
right?
In this industry.
Yeah.
That is the product. And so when I saw that, I just realized that Freedom's product was far superior to our product.
Yeah.
And that there was simply no way for me to get my product to being, on par with your guys's, because the way you're doing that, for one, Brett is insanely intelligent. You're very impressed with your leadership, his leadership, and the volume you guys do. I mean, you have your own distribution across the entire country. You're a direct manufacturer. You've negotiated, extremely aggressively with these finance companies, and you have the weight to do that. Right. It's not just about negotiating. Like, if you do 40% of Mosaic's volume or whatever, let's say you do something massive number like that, of course you're going to have significantly more weight to negotiate than someone that's just like, use me or else. Like, the finance companies aren't going to take them seriously.
Yeah.
Right. And so those big buckets, put you in a position where I simply can't compete.
Yeah.
And I'm a very passionate leader. So I've always been a very passionate leader. I like to go in front of my guys and like we are number one and we are going to be the best. Like, whatever it is, even if we're not the biggest today, I've always believed we were going to be the biggest, like, in the US, and we were going to take over everything. That was always the goal. That was always what we were going to do. And so I could know, after seeing everything, I could no longer consciously go to my sales reps and tell them like we're the best. I would have to lie. Like that, to be honest, like, I would have to go to my sales reps and lie, knowing our product is not superior and that realistically our product won't catch up because you're already so far ahead. It's like past that breaking point.
Yeah.
Where now you're absorbing more and more and more teams because your product is so superior, to other products, that you're going to keep growing even faster. And then I was a large player. And so obviously all your sales guys see my sales guys and they're just like, going after them like crazy, which is good. I mean, we're all competing, but like inevitably I saw like, it's the 5 foot guy versus a 7'6" guy. Like if you don't notice me, great. But like once you notice me, like it's just, you can't compete. And so I realized there's two things. So one, there's the downside. I think inevitably we were going to fail. We're a local, grocery store facing off against Walmart. We simply don't have the means to compete. And then two, on the upside, I realized like I'll have so much more time. Like more than 50% of my time was focused on our operations because it's so complex, right? It's so complex. And so most of my time had been sucked away from working with my sales reps, which is what I'm really passionate about and what I really enjoy. Yeah. And so most of my time had been sucked away from that. And so I was like, what can I accomplish if 100% of my time is focused on sales? Even if that was the only factor. Let's say the price is the same, everything's the same, but the only thing that adjusts is now 100% of my time can be on sales. I should be able to produce twice as much just because of that, right? Because now I can put all of my time and energy into recruiting, into training, into motivating, and then I know I have a partner that I can trust, that can crush it on the operations side. And so there's this massive upside, on that side as well. And then the last thing for me is just since we joined you guys, it's only been like 5.5 months ago, we've been able to go out there and recruit big teams doing 100+ deals a month. Something we simply didn't have the ability to do before joining Freedom, because now I'm recruiting into Freedom. I have obviously a track record of success, which helps me, but I'm saying, hey, I've done a track record. I have a track record of success, and I'm with Freedom, the best, the biggest. I guarantee there's nothing you have that they don't have better. You know, and that it's just so powerful. So now I've been able to recruit significantly better than I was able to recruit with Meraki. So there's this big, I genuinely believe if you know the numbers super well, you sat down, you looked at the numbers, there's no scenario where if you're doing 500 deals a month or less, or honestly even 1,000 deals a month or less, you're inevitably gonna die. Inevitably you're not gonna be able to make it because those reps are gonna continue to go after your guys. It's gonna be very, very difficult, to grow, and Freedom will, they'll eventually take, they're competing, they're here to win. They'll eventually take your guys. And the truth is you would do better, with them. And if you're being upfront with your guys, when you see the numbers, the truth is the product's just better. It's a better product. And I can't lie to my guys. I knew they would succeed more on this platform. Yeah.
You talk about, you work 8 hours a day, or in our case, 12,
yeah,
16, whatever. But you spend all this time working each day, and really it's not how many hours you're working, it's what are you putting your time into, and what are you doing with those 8, 10, 12, 16 hours. And as an installer / sales leader, running your own org, you're managing a lot of things. You have to wear a lot of hats. You got to do a lot of things. And that was my pitch to you, right? It was like, hey, get back to focusing on the thing that really moves the needle. It's what you're good at. It's what we need. It's frankly the most fun, right? It's the most gratifying. And you've exploded because you have you've moved everything to the side, installs, ops, all that stuff. Not that you weren't good at it, but you've re-centered your focus to one singular thing, and that is building and scaling and training a large sales organization. You guys have absolutely exploded, and because, to me, I think part of it, yes, Freedom, you plug in the right partner, you're inevitably going to grow, but really, to me, it's all about putting your time and effort and energy into the thing that moves the needle the most. And it's been that shift of focus that I've seen, in my opinion, that has helped you guys reach this level of meteoric growth. Yeah,
and it's gone extremely well. We've onboarded over 400 sales reps, since July. So in the last 5 months, it's if you don't count the first month in transition, it's been about 100 reps a month fully onboarded. And heck, I came here to Vegas to recruit a team. We just brought them on. They do over 150 deals a month. They just joined us. We're growing way faster than we've ever grown.
Yeah, and it's we talked about this, right? It's like the sooner you come here, the sooner you'll take advantage of all these other companies that are coming to the same realization that you did, right? You were early in comparison to a lot of the small to medium EPCs out there that are still trying to figure it out, trying to survive, and haven't come to grips with the reality that they probably really do need to just shut down the ops, come here and focus on sales, right? The Meraki model is going to be, it already has become the blueprint for several other installers. Like you were the first, but since then we've done several. And to me, I think there's going to be a long line of people doing the same thing. And the sooner they do it, the sooner you can hold on to your salespeople, right? There's a smooth transition. It hasn't been perfect, but like you were still able to, you had this pipeline, you had these existing customers, you had projects that you were still trying to get to PTO. We took over your pipeline. And again, I know it hasn't been perfect, but it has allowed you to have like a clean break off and a smooth transition. So where you can take your pipeline, still have them installed. We take care of the installs. We get them to PTO, and like allows you to just go right into sales mode again. Yep,
100%. Well, now you mentioned there's gonna be a bunch of other teams following the model. I mean, that team I mentioned that just joined us, I mean, they're doing their own installs as well.
Right.
So like it doesn't, like some people are like, oh, these sales groups. I'm like, no, this is full companies. Full companies. They're doing their EPC and sales and everything. They're like, nah, dude, we'd rather be with Freedom.
Well, and a lot of them, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of companies, small especially and medium, they're not getting paid.
Yep.
And so it's like they're faced with a decision. What do we do? What do we do? And to me, the obvious answer is follow the Meraki model. It's, yes, stop worrying about doing your own installs. Stop. It's the hardest thing there is in this business. It's managing.
And you're getting like
ops.
10 cents if you're lucky too. That's what I'm saying. There's not much more. You're taking on an insane amount of more work so that you can get a very small amount of money. I'm like, dude, just sell a few more jobs, you'll make.
I know.
And it's easy to scale sales. Like you can just scale that like no problem. You just recruit more guys. You have more. Like you have no overhead. It's insanely easy. So yeah, sales is, if you want to make money, like that is the key. And the other thing I was going to say that helped me with the move, at the end of the day is, some people are looking at the environment right now, like, oh my gosh, there's all these finance companies and things are going crazy, and they're like, well, maybe if I just make it through this, then I'll be fine, and so I can make it through this. But the truth is this is just what it is today. Right? There's always some crazy shit around the corner. Like that's business. I mean, if you listen to Business Wars, like it's insane. Like listening to these stories, like there is just. That's just the shit today. There's gonna be more shit tomorrow. There's gonna be another thing. There's gonna be another thing. Like that's just how it always is when you're trying to be successful in big business. And so that was another thing that I realized after meeting with Brett is he's the only guy I've truly met in the industry that I feel like has that superpower of seeing around the corners. Like that superpower of like he is absolutely ingrained in this industry. Like he is meeting with all the CEOs of the finance companies. He has a massive financial background. He's had multiple very successful companies. Like he's the only one that like is anticipating this, negative stuff way before it happens. Like he anticipated the equipment pricing shooting up way before it happened. He prepared for it. He anticipated this way before it happened. He prepared for it. And even if you could make it through today, speaking of installers out there, even if you can make it through today, it's just going to be another thing. And eventually, if you don't have that ability, if you're not that ingrained in the industry, one of them is going to get you.
Yeah.
Like eventually it's going to get you. You have to have someone that knows what they're doing.
Well, you mentioned, you gave us, the Walmart comparison, and I won't speak to whether I like or don't like that comparison, but
we'll say Amazon.
But in that, whatever it is, in that analogy, are you saying there's not a place for Whole Foods and for the local grocery store? Like, I go to the local grocery, I don't go to Walmart very often. Like it's far away. And so like, do you not feel like there's a place for a small to medium installer in today's world? I mean, you said eventually if the majority of your volume is from like the door-to-door sales culture, then you're right. Like I think Solar Pros and I think, all the Freedom sales teams are coming, they're going to get them.
Yeah.
But what if you have another sales strategy, like you're generating everything online, or you're doing call centers, or, you're not as susceptible or vulnerable to the door-to-door sales teams. I wonder, like, is there really not a place for the small to medium-sized solar installers? And like, does that analogy actually apply? Because there's clearly a place, not as big as, you're not, the small local grocery stores never going to become Walmart, but does that mean they can't stay in business and at least create a good living for themselves?
So I think there always will be small mom and pop shops, small, medium size. I think that they will exist, of course. And I think that, we do want that. We like competition, we want other people to win. The more everyone wins is the better the industry is going to go.
Right.
I do think, a little bit harshly, but I do think the reason some of these other small companies outside of Walmart, can still exist or still even be around Walmart, even though Walmart did put out, if you look at the history of it, they put an insane number of companies out of business.
Yeah.
Which is good because the reason is consumers like that option more. So they provided more value. At the end of the day, though, Walmart has a lot of value they can provide. One of those things being price and then optionality and all this stuff. But we have to look at our industry specifically and know just what is the product. It's just saving money. That's the only thing we're selling is saving money. Yes, sometimes there's of course the green energy part of it, but at the end of the day, that's why people get solar is to save money. And so the amount of money you save is just so powerful. It's king. It's way more powerful in this industry, the price you sell, than any other industry, in my opinion.
Right.
Because it's saving money. And so because of that, the economies of scale is just insanely powerful. It's way more powerful than even in Walmart. So it's almost like a bad comparison because here it'll be more powerful than what Walmart did.
Yeah.
It'll be way more powerful because price is everything. It's literally everything.
Yeah. I was reading this the other day, and this is an analogy I'm kind of starting to formulate because I'm always trying to come up with these comparisons as well. But I was reading the other day when Ford launched the Model T, that, the first production car, the day it launched, it was $860. And that was the equivalent of $30,000 in today's money. Okay. So that's what it cost the day it launched. 8 years later, the price was less than $300.
Crazy.
And
wow.
that, in today's numbers, the equivalent is $5,000. We're not buying cars for $5,000. Nobody's achieved that level of scale. Cars are a lot more complicated now, but the concept of the economies of scale, it really hit me when I read that because that is kind of more what we're trying to do. The bigger we get, you mentioned equipment. That's one of 12 examples I could give you where we are better on pricing and it's just harder to compete with us in those areas. And as we get bigger, I believe our costs are going to continue to come down. Just like the reason the Model T got lower over time was because they got more efficient at building that car. The assembly line was created and that whole process, they got better and they just drove their costs down to the point where everybody in America could afford a car. Right. And, the flaw in that analogy is in today's world, you have to have power. You have to have electricity. That's not an option. And so, so that was, I was thinking man, we are really trying to just drive our costs down. And that is the thing that I don't know how anybody competes with, even if they're a small local installer, even more so. Regardless of whether what your sales strategy is, if you have sales reps or you sell in through some other medium, how do you sit in front of a customer and say, well, we're twice as much or 50% more than Freedom, and it's the exact same product? Yeah,
it's insane. Well, it's worse too because you want your warranty. A big problem in the industry is these guys have gone out of business. There's no warranty work there. There's nothing to help them. Not only traditionally, you go for bigger, it's more stable, but it's more expensive. But now it's not. It's bigger, more stable, better, and cheaper. And so it's just you have literally nothing. You have no leg up on it. And the truth is too, I met with most of these small, medium sized, companies, and they want to be big. Right? They want to be big one day. And I'm like, okay, well, the best recruiting pitch I can do is sit down with them and say, okay, cool. Well, let's just see if your model scales. I was like, let's go ahead and let's say you do 1,000 deals a month. Okay, well, you're going to need a manager level on your sales team, and managers eventually want to bring on other manager level guys. So they're going to want to be able to be a regional over them. And if they would get 1,000, you're going to want a guy that kind of gets to a divisional level over that. You're going to have these levels. I'm like, okay, so that's 10 cents and 5 cents and 5 cents and 5 cents. You add it all up and they're like, okay, now how much are your operations? I add it up and they're like, right now they only have a 30-cent spread. And I'm like, oh, well, looks like you're going to be negative 25 cents. So, so what's your plan? And he's like, oh, well, shit, I'll have to raise my baseline of my reps. I'm like, oh, well, then you'll be at a baseline where our reps make $5,000 when you make zero. You really think you're going to compete? And then it's like, no, you won't. So what it does is it just shows them the vision of they're going to have to either stay the size they are today and hopefully survive, which again, I also bluntly and harshly think they won't, but they're going to have to stay that size, or if they try and grow it, then they'll die. It's a rock and a hard place because the price is everything. And what I've been most impressed with Brett and the whole organization, Freedom Pros, Solar Pros and Freedom all the way down is his vision is the adoption of solar, across the US.
Right.
And he's trying to drive the price down. What he's done such a good job at is having that go through the whole organization. Like, it's from him, but it's also the dealers, the super dealers you guys have all the way down. It's just all aligned. And that's just so rare, because what happens in our industry is there's just so many people just holding on to giant amounts of money. They want 20-cent overrides and, whatever it is. They're just trying to get like insane. They're just trying to hold on to it, which ends up, of course, failing their business, but they're trying to do that. And that doesn't exist anywhere from the top to the bottom at Freedom. I know when we first came on, we were, of course, wanted to be a dealer. We're going to run our own dealership. Right. I was like, why would I go in-house? Like, I've ran multiple companies. I have plenty of money. Like,
that was another difficult conversation we had to have. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I'm going to be a dealer. Like, why would I? I'm not going in-house. Like, I'm not joining these Solar Pro dudes. Why would I do that? And so I was like, I'm going to keep the money. They don't provide value. Right. This is what I'm thinking. Of course, big head, as all sales guys have. But I sat down with them and they're like, no, like, we're literally just keeping enough money to run this thing. And I'm like, I don't believe you. But then they had that alignment, where, obviously they're looking to, finish being fully merged with Freedom. And then there's an equity buyout happening, 2029 or roughly 5 years or whatever. And it showed that they have this massive value of being aligned with Freedom. And you guys have done a really good job where they genuinely are keeping just a very small, very, very small amount on the sales guys. Like, that money is being pushed down to the very bottom, these sales reps. And then you've structured the commission in a way that incentivizes the sales reps to make good money on the sales, but save the customer an insane amount of money.
Yes.
And that combination is just insane. Like, I sat down and said, okay, how much does it cost me to run my dealership at scale? Because at Meraki, we had a Meraki, but then a big part of it was another LLC that was a dealer of the EPC. So I had the books on all of it. And the amount of money that, Solar Pros was keeping on it was half as much as it's going to cost me to run it myself. Yeah. So I was like, why would I run it myself?
Right.
What's the point?
It's more expensive to do it yourself than to just plug in. And a lot more work. And then that removes time and energy and focus from what you really should be doing, right?
Exactly.
We've tried to build a business to where the only thing we need that is missing is sales, recruiting, and training on the sales side. Like, those are the things that you guys are good at. And those are the things that we've tried to build a business where we'll handle everything else. You just stay focused on selling, training, and recruiting. It's a very small niche talent and skill that exists. There's not a lot of people that can do it.
Yep.
And so when we find people who can, we want to try and make everything else as painless as possible so that they can just focus on doing those key things.
Yep.
Right. And so you talk about the dollars and cents for you to make this transition clearly made a lot of financial sense for you.
Yeah.
But the last question that I want to ask you is, there's an emotional aspect of you pour your heart and soul into your business. Mm-hmm. I know what this is like. I've been there. And, this is what you thought you would do for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And, and this was the thing that you put everything into. This is your baby. And now you're faced with this difficult, painful, emotional decision of, I am going to transition from this to something else. Walk me through making that decision, how you came to that conclusion. Clearly the math and the facts and, the non-human factors of that decision make all the sense in the world.
Yep.
But what about, I think there's so many companies out there, so many sales leaders and CEOs and owners of other EPCs or even other sales orgs that are in the same situation you were in. And that is probably I'm guessing, one of the most difficult decisions for them to make.
Yeah, it was insanely hard because you have to, at first it was the idea of giving up a vision, giving up this dream, giving up the thing, which I like to look at it more of now as just shifting, of course, the dream. I actually think we're going to accomplish significantly more than I ever was going to be able to accomplish before by myself. But at the time, it was extremely emotional, like extremely hard. We stayed up till like 4 a.m. the day after we met with you guys and just talking through it all. Like it was just a very, very, very hard moment. And especially a lot of people in the industry think, oh, we got acquired and got this giant payout, all this money. That's why we did it. That's not true at all, which you obviously know. to everyone out there, like we did not take any payout. Like we were not acquired, right? We shut down our company, we shut it down so that we could join, because we just knew the opportunity was significantly better for us and all of our people, right? And so we didn't do it for any like immediate payout or anything like that. Obviously I have great positions here and it's amazing, but it wasn't because of that. It was because the opportunity is just that much better. But it was hard. Yeah, I mean, it was super, super hard. I mean, and even in the transition, any transition is going to be tough. You know, there's no such thing as clean transitions. It would be insane. It's just impossible, especially with companies our size. And so it's going to be a hard thing, but you know, usually you go through really hard things. You're doing it because you know that the end result is significantly better. I tell guys, like, don't look at how it's going to be in the next, 6 months. Look at how, if you take this path, what does it look like in 5 years? The difference between the two. And when I look back at it that way, it's like, well, obviously 5 whole years with freedom, we're just going to be in a way better place than whatever we could be by ourselves for 5 years. So you kind of just have to look past the next 6 months or a year, whatever you're going to have to kind of trudge through, in the transition, so that you can see like, oh yeah, I'm going to be unbelievably more successful and happier in the long run. So I'll trudge through the pain. Yeah, but it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, it's heavy, right? It's a heavy moment, heavy experience to go through. But what you're saying is you didn't necessarily abandon or have to shut down that dream, that mission, or that vision.
Yep.
You shifted the way you're going to achieve that same thing. But by doing that, you've actually given yourself the ability to have an even bigger impact or do it in an even bigger way than you ever dreamed possible in the previous situation.
100%. Yeah. We were very proud of it, but like 95% of our reps had never sold solar before joining Meraki. Our whole mission statement is the rep experience, and is taking people that have never done this job, training them how to do this job, changing their lives, changing their spouses' lives, their kids' lives, because this industry is amazing. The opportunity is amazing. It was just read it this morning on Forbes, it was listed as like, they listed the top 10, job opportunities this morning, to make, really be really successful, make $250,000 plus, and selling solar was number 2 on Forbes this morning.
What was number 1?
I don't know. I just looked at selling solar. I don't care.
All right. That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing? I was like, holy cow, I've never seen that, listed. And so, the vision is alive. And again, it's significantly better than it was before. We do have a lot of solar teams joining us now, which is great too, but again, we can improve their lives, but then teach them to do the same thing, bring people in. If they're willing to work hard, if they're willing to get out there, they're willing to crush it. Like, there is no better opportunity, in my opinion. I know sometimes it comes across cliche because everyone says that so much, but they say it so much because it's true.
Right.
Like, that's why they're saying it so much.
Yeah. And that narrative of like, oh, they're so big already. They're too big. The ceiling and all that stuff. We are so early. We are so ground
early.
Floor, right? Like, I don't think solar is going to look the same a year from now than it does today, let alone 5 years from now. I don't think solar is going to look the same 2 months from now, right? Like, this is evolving so fast. And, it's just been awesome to see, and thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your experience, because there's a lot of companies out there. There's a lot of people, good sales leaders, business owners that I think are facing this same decision.
Yeah.
And, hearing from somebody like you who's been through it, experienced it, and is on the other side now, looking at this massive growth opportunity and already just crushing it. Hopefully that speaks to them and resonates with them.
No, I hope so. And the other thing, I think this is actually just a happy mistake, or probably not. That's probably why you guys are so successful. But I've worked with a few different EPCs, and we were always pretty loyal. When I very first started Meraki, we did the whole broker thing, and it was a terrible idea. As you mentioned before, a terrible model. But we always had one, EPC partner, and I had a lot of EPCs I worked with where they had leaders that, to be honest, I didn't like them on a personal level. Except for like Jared Hallows. I love that guy. If he ever sees this, I like that guy
good
a lot.
Dude, I know
He's
him.
a really good guy. And there's some really good people, when we worked with Solcius, they had some really good people that I really enjoyed. But when I came here, that is one of the things that I've just also been very surprised with, is just the quality of character in the leadership. So like, I love Tyler, Josh, Justin, the pros and other people, the pros, not to name drop literally 50 people, but I've really enjoyed working with them. Like their character as a leadership team is just astounding. And it's just very hard to find and rare. That they're actually just like super genuinely good people. Yeah, it's been nice.
Yeah, the term I use when we talk about the sales leaders of our sales partners, especially, the big three and Solar Pros in particular, because they were the first to buy into this model. Mm-hmm. But like I've been doing this for 16 years, and those guys were hand selected, like hand picked out of, I don't know, tens of thousands of people.
Yep.
And there's a reason. And so, and I could say the same about a lot of the leadership around us. It's like, it feels like when you have a leader like Brett, who's got this vision, and you have enough people that are buying into that, you have the ability to you're attracting just the best of the best. Mm-hmm. So it's been amazing. And you guys are absolutely dominating in a very, very tumultuous market in a very, very uncertain, uneasy time. But so thank you for joining. Thank you for sharing your story. And just so excited to see what you guys accomplish in 2025. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I feel like your group in particular, like you're bringing on 100 people a month. I think you'll be 4 to 5 times that by the end of this year.
Yeah.
In terms of your pace. So that's just a speculation. Don't hold me to it. But that's just like, you guys are as good as it gets from a leadership standpoint. I mean, there's a reason you're just plugging in and dominating day one. And a lot of it, I think, is like you have a different lens because you've run your own company. You've been through a lot of these experiences that there's only one way to go through that and have that perspective is to go through the things you've gone through.
Yep.
And so like somebody who kind of can understand all sides of a lot of what's going on, from the sales to the ops to everything in between, you have a unique perspective. And I think that is serving you even more in this new role and allowing you to really just thrive and grow. So it's been awesome to see. And I hear just nothing but amazing things about you, Max Robinson, and Jacob. So
thank you.
You guys have crushed it.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me on.
Thank you for joining. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you on the next episode. Talk soon.